This
the
conference
next
will now
topic.
be recorded.
Today we will start the next topic, which is process modeling. But before going to process modeling, there are certain things which I need to discuss. So if I go to MDG IMG and data model, so this is the data model which we discussed thoroughly. In the last sessions, particularly couple of sessions, while we were talking about a very detailed uh, discussion on data modeling, mainly the area which we talked about, that is edit data model. Where we have we generated the structures for specific data model at the specific entity, okay, and then particularly for different active, basically different
Aditya,
purpose,
sorry.
like SMT.
Aditya, can you hear me?
Okay.
Aditya, I think it's breaking. Your voice is breaking.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Vidya, can you repeat? We couldn't hear you earlier.
I think he's checking his internet 2 minutes.
Okay, is this clear now?
It's loud and clear, Aditya. We can
Okay.
continue now.
Okay, okay. So let me repeat if you had an issue to hear me. So what I was saying that particularly couple of sessions where we were discussing with the data model. So the area which we talked about in the data model, mainly the edit data model, where we have a list of data models. We can enhance the existing data model, or we have seen that we have created new data model, custom data model. Also, we have seen that we can add the new entity type, new attributes, maintain the relationship, and many other things. Apart from this edit data model, we also talked about the generate data model specific structure. Basically, in this particular generate data model specific structure, where we have extended the data model respect to the different entity types for different purpose. What are the purpose? Let's say for SMT mapping, for search and duplicate check, for UI field mapping, for data validations and derivations. So those structures we extended with the respective custom field which we have, let's say, included in the in the data model structure. So also we also have seen that how we can maintain the SMT mapping. Let's say we have some
Aditya, we lost you again.
have experience to work with create and edit mapping, where we have the SMT mapping in place. So
Aditya,
for
looks like your internet is not stable today. Can you please check again?
okay. Okay, I tried to rejoin. I hope, is it okay?
Looks fine now so far, Aditya.
Okay. Okay, just a moment. Let me log in from my laptop. Okay. So the SMT mapping we have also seen. Now, apart from this, create and edit mapping and extended mapping is more or less same. So the whole area is talking about the SMT mapping itself. So this is the major part which we have in the data model. But apart from this uh, data model, the actual data model enhancing area and the generate data model specific structure and the SMT mapping, there are certain things which I will quickly touch upon. However, from the development point of view, we need not to do any modification there, but still I will just quickly touch up those points. So the first point is define business object type codes. So this is nothing but a different BO. So first of all, those who don't have the understanding about the business object, if I talk about quickly the business object, So business object is basically, if I define in a very simple note, that is, it is a combination of different objects which help in order to execute some activity. What kind of activity? It could be like a data validation. It could be like uh, the workflow uh, processing. Uh, it could be like derivations. It could be like uh, the different functionality to build within the process, and obviously last but not the least, to move the process from the starting to end point and help to activate the process. So this is the whole purpose of having the business object. So whatever the master data we are using, whether supplier master, material master, customer master, finance master, custom object, business partner, whatever the master data we are using, every master data will have some attached BO type. So those BO type will help them in order to execute the bunch of activities. So like if I talk about business partner, so you can see the BO type is 147. That means I can say the BO type 147 is fully responsible for the business partner data. That means today if I process business partner data being a requester, then the data will be processed through workflow framework. If there is any backend validations or derivations needed, that will be also taken care. Then go to the next level, have the approval process, and then finally the activation. And then finally we have the permanent business partner, and that will go and sit the database table of business partner, which is, let's say, BUT000 table. So this whole process will be taken care by this BO type. Similarly, if you see customer, the BO type 159, material 194. So likewise, you can see even for finance, for a profit center, we have a different BO type. Similarly, for a company, we have a different BO type. For cost center, we have a different BO type. So for every single master data, we have a different BO type which is responsible for certain list of activities. And these are all standard. Okay, so we need not to create any additional entity type. Now there can be one question that, let's say, in my project requirement, I need to create one custom data model. Like we have a custom data model which we have created another day for airline processing. So if such kind of requirement I have, then which BO type I will be using? So if you are using the custom data model, then the BO type which you need to use, that is BUS 2250. This is the BO type for MDG custom process, okay, or custom data model. So you can see, as I was telling, that the BO type having interfaces. So it having the interfaces, the key fields, the attributes. These are all different attributes for MDG change request, particularly uh, methods. These are all different methods like display, process, get agents, uh, validations, activation, rollback. These are all different methods, and events like create, change, delete, activate, rollback. These are all. Okay. So if I am using the business custom data model, then the business object which will help us, that is this bus 2250. So we need not to create separately any other BO type. So already whatever the BO type has been provided by SAP, that is more than sufficient. Okay. So that is one. Secondly, define entity type to be used by the business object type. So you can see there are certain BO type which is assigned with the entity types. Particularly for material, business partner, it's very straightforward. For material, there is a BO type, that is 194. For business partner, you have a specific BO type for business partner, and then similarly you have for customer and for supplier as well. But if you see the finance, it is having uh, the different items within the organization structure of finance, like company, cost center, profit center, general ledger, cost center group, profit center group, and so on, so many. And they are individual. So if you remember when I was explaining the finance data model, I mentioned one particular statement that in finance, every entity types are individual and they are independent. Okay, and that's what you can see, that almost every entity type. However, in finance there are many more entity types, but these are all major entity types which behaves in the framework as independent and individual, and they having specific BO type. Like for company, there is a specific BO type, cost center, profit center, general ledger, etc. And you can see the associate entity type, which is a part of the data model, and their description. Okay. Now the question is, tomorrow, if I need to add any specific custom entity type, whether I need to add any specific BO, here you can see someone has added the custom BO type, but honestly speaking, it is not necessary. Whatever the custom data model we have, we can deal with the standard BO type which provided by SAP. But still, if you want with some specific methods, events that you can see, let's say for this one, if I quickly check in the BO, okay, this is the name we need to identify anyway. But honestly speaking, like you can see, the custom data model which we have created, and we will continue with that today as well for process model, we don't need to define categorically any custom BO type. We will enhance the standard BO type which provided by SAP. That's more than sufficient. Now the point is, for for BP, whether I need to define anything here? No, not required. Already it's been defined in the previous step what we have seen. So you need not to define categorically for or BP or customer or supplier. Why? Because let's say for material, for data model, there can be hundreds of entity types, and they are all part of the single BO type, which is 194. Okay, so it is not possible to define all the entity types. Even though if you maintain just the material as an entity type, that is also not required. Okay, similarly for customer, for vendor, for business partner, there can be multiple entity types respect to them. So not required. So this is the standard item. Now the next thing is the prefix for temporary key. Now what happens that when uh, down the line when we complete the UI, then we will start creating the master data through MDG change request. Then you will see that when we submit the change request, we will have some temporary number for material master. We will have some temporary number for business partner or customer master or vendor master. Now when we will get the permanent number once the whole process complete, whole process of approval complete, then we will have the permanent number that we will see down the line. Now the point is uh, the temporary number which will appear on the screen or which will be available in the staging table as a part of inactive uh, field or inactive number, that number prefix will be what? So here you can see dollar, or if you want, no, I would like to start with hash. That also you can do. Okay, so there is no specific rule on this. It is just to define the temporary master data number, whether it is for material, for a business partner, for customer, for a supplier, etc. Okay. This is also we are not going to change. Whatever standard we have, we will continue to do with it. Then authorization relevance per entity type. Again, this is defined by SAP. We need not to define anything additionally here. This is kind of a authorization part respect to different entity types, relevant attributes, etc. So let's say for a specific data model, if I want to restrict some entity type access or some attribute access, then I can do that. But honestly speaking, we will not do anything here. Okay, if we need to restrict something, then we have some other way to deal with that. Probably down the line when we have some special case to discuss, I will talk about those authorization related thing, or probably I can talk about in the workflow chapter when we have a discussion with the MDG roles. So how to restrict your authorization by different roles, but obviously not through here. Okay. So these are all things which we have in the data model. So you can see that we should not change anything, whatever today we have seen, but still it is better to have a look what we have here. And finally, I think it is a package. So ultimately, whatever the data model you are creating, that has to go through some package of customizing include if you have. Okay, so that is the data model part. Now today I will start with the process model. So before I go to the system, I would talk about I would like to talk about some basic details about the process model. So what is process model, by the way? So process model is define the different processes within the MDG framework, like create master data, change or update master data, mark for deletion, block unblock, mass processing, etc. So these are all different processes in MDG framework. So those processes we will create in the process modeling. So now while dealing with those different processes, we have to deal with certain things like business activity, change request type, and change request. Now to understand the change request type and business activity, if I say Change request is nothing but a table field. For an example, just visualize this. Now, change request type is nothing but the data element of that particular field. And business activity is nothing but the domain of that particular field. So ultimately, business activity is nothing but the soul of the field, or the soul of the whole process. Change request type is just an outer layer of it. And ultimately what we see, that is nothing but the change request. So that's what every time we talk about, like, whatever we will do, whether it is a create, change, mark for deletion, everything will go through the MDG change request. So this is the MDG change request is nothing but the outer layer graphical user interface, which we basically use for different process to maintain. So this is the business activity. However, quickly we will try to see what are those things and how to create them. And then this is change request type, change request type, and this is look like a change request. Okay, so this is the change request where you have the change request information. Okay, change request ID, description, priority, due date, reasons, status of the change request. These are all, and the followed by the necessary information. Okay, so now let's go to the system, and first of all, let me see whether our custom data model which we created. I can see our custom data model is not here. I don't know whether someone has been deleted that. I would like to request, if someone deleted, please not to delete what we created earlier sessions, because uh, the following sessions will be somehow related to that. So if something deleted, then again I need to create that. So of course you can create your own, but it does not mean just delete it. So just keep in mind. So not sure whether any individual has been deleted or the system has been refreshed. So I have no idea. Anyway, so let me create quickly. It's not a big deal. So yeah. So the first entity, which one I would like to take, that is carrier ID. Carrier ID. This is type 1 data element. Wait a minute, I need to check the data element. So this is the one. Now I can give some length, description, save, then go to attribute, and it was URL, and this is the data element. Save it. So apart from this, we had one more entity type, which was currency, which we considered as a type 3, and the data element was this one. Currency. So this will behave as a type 3, and finally we can create some relationship. So basically the relation between carrier ID and currency. Okay, referencing relationship, cardinality, let's say 1:n. Data element, we can define currency data element and just save it. Okay. So the active version is none because I have created this but not activated yet. So let me activate this. Okay, so it is activate now. Okay, now go back and go to the process model. So the first thing which we would like to do, that is the business activity. So first the logical actions. So what are those logical actions we have? Logical actions like create, change, mark for deletion, then block, unblock, multiprocessing, data load, mass processing as well. These are all. So already these are all actions which is defined by SAP. So I don't think so any other actions we will be required apart from this. So we will continue with that. If any new actions we require in our process, that all. So create business activity. So you can see this is the standard business activity, but our is a custom one. So we need to create the custom business activity. So first is like the business activity we can give like let's say C1 something. I'm just giving some name. Description, airline process, business activity. This is the data model. So what is the data model we have? This is the one. Okay. Then BO type. So as I was saying that whenever we will use the custom business object, the BO type will be already provided by system, which is nothing but the backend BUS2250. So we need not to define any separate BO type for that. So I will keep it blank, this part. Then logical action, let's say create. Okay, or we can obviously select it from the list. This is create. Okay. So this is the business activity. This is the business activity which we have. Airline process, YA, and the logical action create. Then this part, this linked logical action with UI and then linked logical action with business activity, this part we need to park it until we cover the UI application. Okay, because this activity is currently linked with UI application. So the interesting fact in MDG is like data model, process model, UI, workflow, the way they closely related to each other, or rather I can say the closely linked with each other, that sometimes in order to explain them properly, we need to wait for certain things to cover, and then only we can able to uh, cover or we can able to explain that part. So that's the reason we have to say here that until and unless we complete the UI part, we need to park it. Okay, just a moment, please. Okay. Now coming to the change request part. So in the change request part, first I will talk about the change request type after the business activity. So if I go to change request type, and these are all standard change request type what you see here. So I will continue with new entry. So here the new entry, let's say, okay, edition type. What is the meaning of edition? Edition means every version, or every rather we can say that this is a certain version of MDG. So every version, when you create some object, you have a certain edition linked with. Okay, so when you say, so if you see the options, so there are certain you can see object which is already part of this edition. That means, let's say if I create something, let's say I can say the edition is YAE, something like that. Then what is going to happen? The present MDG version which hold the present edition, this will be associate with this change request type will be associate with this edition. So tomorrow if the version change, and if this particular edition does not move, then we will lose this change request type. So that's what always we will indicate every single object we will deal with in MDG as edition independent. Edition independent. So we will just keep it blank. So that is going to make a message to the object that it is a edition independent. So the data model, the description, now the object required. Now here, object required means this change request type and this data model which we define here, whether always in this particular instance, whenever we will call the data model YA, that means we will always use the change request type YAC1. Is this true? The answer is no. That is not the case. Today I create YAC1. Tomorrow somebody will come and will create YAB1, which is also accessing the data model YA for create process. Let's say the same process which YAC1 has been or it is being create for this. So it is not true. The data model can be accessed by the different type of change request type. Okay, so I would say that object required will definitely not be ticked. So that means the data model YA, or it's not a matter with this particular data model, any data model, even though including the standard one, it can be accessed by multiple different type of change request type. Okay. You may think, okay, but for the data model YA, I just need one change request type for create. I just need one change request type for change. I just need one change request type for mark for deletion, something like that, for multi-processing and for mass processing. Then why it is necessary to keep it blank, object required? I can obviously make it mandatory. What's the problem? Yes, let's say for an example, this is a very important question. Let's say for an example, today I have YAC1 for create scenario to access data model YA. Down the line, your business will increase and you will think, okay, now I will differentiate my business, which is a global business ultimately, into the different region. This is one, initially let's say one for the entire global business. One change request type for entire global business to access the data model YA. But down the line, the moment your business increase, let's say for North America, for Latin America, for Europe, and for Asia Pacific, you have decided to go for different change request type and all for create and all for the same data model. Then how you will define it? Is it possible to continue with YAC1? No. So then you have to think something like YAC1 in a okay. So then all are for create, but based on the different region, you have a different change request type, which is accessing the data model YA for same process, which is nothing but create. Okay. So that is the main reason to avoid this object required tick mark. Second thing is the single object. Single object means whether whatever you are going to create, whether it is whether this whole process is a part of the single change request you are using, or you are using the multiple change request, or similarly for the workflow, whether you are using the single workflow or the parallel workflow. So mainly these 2 points, which is talking about single object and parallel, this is basically uh, talking about parallel CR, whether you have any parallel CR change request. So whether to deal with the create scenario, whether you just have one change request or more than one change request just to accomplish a single task. So that is one thing. And the single object is basically whether you are using the single workflow or the parallel workflow, that kind of activity. So mainly the single workflow, let's say, I would say, and obviously no parallel CR, I will continue with the same CR. Okay. Then main entity type. What is the main entity type here? Carrier ID. Okay. The leading entity type you have to give. Then the workflow. Now the thing is, in MDG, though we will use, let's say, rule-based workflow, or we will create our own workflow process, etc., etc. That's true. But we have to give one workflow template name which will be define the whole process from the backend. So that workflow template you need to give. So for custom process, we have workflow like wait a minute. Let me share my screen. I was actually trying to open one document. Okay, this is the document. Suddenly it clicked in my mind. So I think this document is also available in the share drive. Okay. Now the question is, how I will come to know what will be the workflow template? Is it possible for me to remember this template all the time? No, not possible. So then how I will get this information? So let's see in this document. This document is, if you see the heading of the document, the heading of the document is basically it is dealing with the custom process for the MDG framework. Okay, I think it is having a different example, the example which we are dealing with. Yeah, it is having a example like a car manufacturing. We are dealing with airline processing. It is talking about car manufacturing. Anyway, but end of the day, it's more or less same. So you can follow the process. It is more or less same. So the reason I'm checking this document, because I need to know the workflow template number. So definitely in this document, because this is a custom process, so suddenly it clicked in my mind. So we definitely have the template number over here. Okay, I can see one template number. We can try to use this number. Let's see. It is WS543 WS543 00020 00020. Let's see. Now just want to see this template, how it look like. It's a standard template. So for that I need to go to this is the transaction. Is no SWDD. Okay, it's processing. Okay, so this is the transaction. So now in this transaction, this is the one, enter. So this is the workflow number which we enter. This is nothing but workflow builder. By using this, we can create a new workflow itself. But this is the old school method. So we are not going to use this. Rather, we will use the standard workflow template, and then we will create our own by using the rule-based workflow. Okay. So now this is the design, which you can see. It is quite complicated design provided by SAP, and it is having some start point and of course some end point, and these are all the middle steps where you have some conditional event and then followed by some validations, activations, approvals, etc., etc. Now the thing is, in this workflow it may have so many steps which we are not going to use that. We will define our own process through rule-based workflow. So that is not having any relation. We are just using this workflow template as our backbone. Okay, so it will be behind. So basically, behind this curtain, this workflow template will help in order to execute the process. Okay, so this is the workflow template number. Enter. Specify change request type. Now, here is the interesting point. You have probably seen the errors. Let me save it. It says change request type YAC1, main entity type carrier ID does not exist. But if you see, this is the change request type and this is the carrier ID which we define. Then what's wrong? So basically, we also need to define the entity type details here. So just go to new entry, carrier ID. Now configuration ID. So this configuration ID is nothing but it is asking the UI configuration ID. So as I was talking about, So in MDG, everything is connected. So now you can see here the change request type connect with data model. And similarly, the very same change request type connect with UI. Now the question is, what is the UI configuration ID? I don't know at this moment because I haven't reached to the UI yet. So I have to wait. So anyway, for the time being, I'm just keeping it blank and continue to save it. Okay. Now this is the customizing request. The other one which we had, that is the workbench request. Okay. Now then, apart from this, what we need to do, that is the business activity. Now as I was giving the example, like for an example, change request type is nothing but a data model, sorry, a data element, like, and business activity is just like a domain. Okay, so obviously when we have a data element, I need to define the domain as well, the respective domain as well. So what was the business activity? Just type YA star and you can see this is the business activity just before this step which we have created. Okay. So this is nothing but the change request type. And then when we have the change request type defined, okay, this is the change request type. Now with this change request type, I can create a different process. And by using this different process, the change request will follow. So basically, if I just quickly show you, like this is the change request type, then to define the process, we need to go to the workflow, let's say. However, we have a separate topic to talk about this. Just to show you the rule-based workflow. And here the change request type. So now I can give the change request type. So this is for what? For creation. For create airline process. So then this is the rule-based workflow. So the existing request. So this is the existing request and continue. It is better to switch Chrome to get a good bandwidth. Anyway, so now you can see you are in rule-based workflow. So basically rule-based workflow is a combination of BRF plus and workflow. So here you define the decision tables and the BRF plus details. So we will talk about definitely this item under the workflow chapter, but here you basically define the workflow processes. Okay. So that means two things what we discussed so far. One is the business activity, another one is the change request type. Okay. And then apart from this change request type, what else we have? We have the status of the change request. Like you can see to be evaluated, or let's say for an example, I'm creating, let's say, one status. Y1 to be approved by approver. Okay, so the point is, what is the use of the change request status? How do you know the change request, where the change request is currently present, whether it is in requester stage or in approver stage, or in even though in approval level we have an approver 1, approver 2, approver 3, like that. So which approver it is right now, and then the activation completed. So which state the change request is. So to understand this, we need to define the status of the change request. Okay, so you can see the screenshot. You can see here the change request status, changes to be executed. So at this moment I can say from this status that this change request is still in requester stage. Still the requester is filling the change request and then he will submit it. Okay, so this way we from the change request status we will come to know that where exactly the change request is. So that's the reason the status is important. Now permitted processing. Now here the permitted processing means for the different stage we have, let's say we have a certain stage, let's say approver 1, approver 2, approver 3, etc., where we want a certain field should be allowed for certain approver to edit it or to modify it. So if he found something is wrong, he needs not to reject it and send it back to the requester again. Rather, he has the liberty to change the field. Then I can choose the permitting processing. So basically it's a kind of a authorization, a kind of a you can give a large segment of authorization, or you can curve the authorization that you can do. So no processing means you can't change anything. Changes of the object is you have certain fields to be allowed to change, or rather we can say a large segment of field you can allow to change. Execution of changes, this is a kind of also certain field to allow changes. So let's say this one and save it. So this way, so that means when I will be when my change request is showing status Y1, then I can understand my change request is to be approved by approver. Now the question is how we define the status. So that to define the status of the status will be defined here under the process module. Okay, so this is one. Similarly, the priority of the change request. Now, before I talk about the status priority, one more important thing to share with here. Now, this list is very important, and this is a kind of a list where you have the backend tables for the different details. Like I was talking about the CR status. Do you know under which table this CR status is going or getting stored? So here I just went here and I just created this CR status, but ultimately it is going to certain table, right? So which table that is? So if I quickly check the table USMD 130F, sorry, USMD 130, wait a minute, let me check. USMD 130C, sorry. USMD 130C. Okay, this is the status of the change request, and this is the USMDC request status, and this is the process permitted state. So now if I execute, it is processing, and just execute. So this is the whole list of the status, and here we can see the status which we created. Okay. So similarly, we have something called, let's say, change request priority, which store under USMD 210C. So priority, again, if I go to the change request, so every change request is having some priority, right? So based on the priority, we need to understand so how much this request is important, and accordingly we need to act on it. So this priority also we need to define. So when we go to this define priorities for change request, so by default you can see within 1 hour, 2 days, 4 days, whatever, but it may not be like that. It may be, let's say, priority 1 is, let's say, 2 hours. Priority 2 is, let's say, 4 hours. And priority 3 is, let's say, 8 hours. Okay. So this could be the priority, or similarly, if you want, you can add on the priority. So this is, let's say, 24 hours. Like this. So definitely whatever we mention now, that will be reflected in the table. So what was the table name for that? It is USMD 210C. So similarly, we can go to this table, USMD 210C. Execute. You can see this is how. And similarly, when you go to change request, also you can see the details. Let me show you the change request. Let me go to NWBC. So NWBC is nothing but NetWeaver Business Client, which is a launchpad. Okay. Under this launchpad, we have a different MDG roles, which I am not talking about right now. We will talk about when we will have a discussion on the MDG roles under the workflow chapter. So I'm just bypassing specific, because through roles, what exactly we do, we create an authorization circle, you know. So let's say you should have this access, I should not have this access. So those kind of things we create within the role. Now here we have a material and other things as well. So now if I create material, and let's say mat01 for an example, which is a standard change request type. I will come to the standard change request type. I just started with the custom one. Now you can see this is the list. Okay, so this is how it reflect in the change request. So next is the reason of the change request. So this reason is basically this field you can it is a part of the standard process. However, but down the line, if you want, you can customize this and you can discard this field. That is also possible. But anyway, as it is right now having it, so change request reason means every change request you can see, it is asking some reason. So for what reason you are creating this change request, okay? And it is having a very top level reason, basically no specific reason. So basically it's a customer request. No, obviously I have a customer requirement, that's what I'm creating this change request, right? So this is nothing new. So that's what, if you want, you can down the line through UI processing, you can discard this field. But as it is a now part of a standard process, so we can maintain this. Okay. Now let's say you say that no, I don't like this. I rather I have something different. So let's say you say I want something called reason is CR. mm, Let's say business reason. Business reason. Okay, and then save it. Basically, I can go to Mat01 because I'm just showing you the example of Mat01. So just a moment. Mat01. Save it. Now, whether I can see any change in this request? No. I need to close this request, and I need to call again the new request. So yeah, close the whole NWBC, rather just close the change request. Okay. So here, Mat01, continue. And now here you can see business reason. Okay. So this way also you can do. Now similarly for this reason, the data will go in which table? So, for reason for change creation change request, it is USMD 211C. So here, AC11 USMD 211C. Execute it. Execute. So there are long lists. So rather, I will be very specific. See. So we have a business reason for this to change request type. Okay. Now what next? Next is reason rejection reasons. By the way, rejection reasons right now we don't use in any project because it is no longer relevant. Let me tell you still that when this rejection reason comes into the picture, let's say being a requester, you submit something in the change request, and that data is verified by approver or verifier, and then the approver or verifier reject it. While rejecting this, if you activate this, basically if you define, let's say for YAC1 change request type, I want this reason for rejection, and then you need to give certain different reasons, right? Like duplicate data or no specific reason available or something else. And then you have one pop-up while you are rejecting, and you need to select the drop down from here, that the reason for the rejection is this or this or this. But honestly speaking, this does not make any sense. Duplicate record, duplicate, which data duplicate? What exactly the field is duplicate? What is the correct one? No business reason. If there is no business reason, or let's say other reason, what is the other reason? So honestly speaking, doesn't make any sense, okay, until and unless you brief your detail. Like look, for an example, the plant data, the MRP details which you entered, that is having some issue. So please update the costing lot size, or let's say update the price unit, or let's say update some other fields, etc., etc. Then being a requester, I will understand what is the problem, right? So that's what we right now don't consider this reason for rejection. However, the relative table for this is USMD 212C, but it has absolutely no use in any project. So now coming to the next one, define print form for change request. Now this one, if you remember, uh, last week when I was talking about the generate structure, there I was trying to mention one specific thing, that is right now we are don't using the smart forms and Adobe forms. Earlier, particularly before MDG 6.1 version, there was a version with 5.0 or something. So there it was using MDG smart forms, Adobe forms. But from MDG 6.1, floor plan manager has been introduced in MDG framework, and later on it has been extended to Fiori and UI5. So because of that reason, we don't require to deal with any kind of print form the change request, because when you are using the floor plan manager, let's say, you already have the print option, okay, for the change request. But honestly speaking, I haven't seen any customer till today who is printing the change request, okay. But this option is here, so if someone is really required, but it's not needed actually. Okay, and the business add-ins for this print properties and all, so that is not needed, because nowadays for as far as FPM is concerned, we will deal with floor plan manager UI field properties, and as far as Fiori is concerned, we will also do in a similar fashion the Fiori relative feeder class, etc. So that is a part of UI, so we have to wait for that. Workflow we define as a different chapter, because it's a different ball game altogether. However, you can see it is a continuation under the process modeling, but it is ultimately a different ball game. So that's what we keep it separate. Okay. So that is so far what I was talking about. That is nothing but the custom process if you want to maintain for custom data model. This is the way you have to maintain this. Okay. And this structure, if you see, this structure, you, apart from what we discussed, you can also see the change request number, whatever the change request you have created, that is one USMD 120C. This is a very useful table, and we will frequently go there to check the change request. So you have to keep in mind this table, USMD 120C. And This is having basically the change request number, the type of change request, the edition if there is any, status of the change request, then when the change request has been created, who has been created, when the change request has been changed, who has been changed, when the change request has been released, who has been released, etc. Okay, and here you can see this is the list. Okay, I think the system has been refreshed recently because there are very less number of change requests I can see. Anyway, so this is what we have seen for the custom process. Now the question is, what are the standard one? What are the standard process? Now, if you remember, we have some standard document. We have some standard document, and the standard document, if I quickly open, I just unshare my screen to open the documents. Just a moment. Okay, I just share my screen now. So if I see, this is the supplier document. So in supplier, the page number 19. So in this page number 19, you can see this is the status of the change request, which we were talking about, different status, the purpose of the status, and then followed by this one, followed by the business activity. Now you can see for supplier, these are all standard business activity, which is start
Aditya, we cannot hear you.
Okay, now this list, when we go to the
Aditya,
system,
we lost
yes,
you for a
please.
while. When you were in page 19 of that PDF, we lost you.
Sorry. Okay, you want me to repeat?
Yes, please.
Okay. So here, this is the page number 19. This is the supplier document. And here you can see the change request settings start. In this, you can see the change request status, where you have the list of change request status detail, which we just discussed. Then followed by the business activity for the supplier. Now here what you see, this is the list of business activity for the supplier master. And this is the standard one. What you see that SUP1 for create supplier, SUP2 for process or change supplier, SUP3 for display, 5 for block unblock, 6 for mark for deletion, SUPA for basically the mass processing, process multiple supplier mass processing. Similarly, SUPM for multi-object processing for supplier, and so on. So this is the standard list of business activity for the supplier master, which is available in this document. Because being a developer, I don't know what is the standard business activity for supplier master, let's say. Then what will be my source of information? This document will be the source of information. That's what we provided this document. So then when you see this detail in the create business activity, and there when you say, here you have SUP1 for create, change, display, mark for deletion, then mass processing, and followed by. Now you can see, I can't see these are, I can't see these are like M and all, because this is the lowest version. If I go to the updated version, this instance was not opening. That's what I log in with another instance. Anyway, this is basically 7.0, which I was discussing. But when you go to the updated one, 9.2, which is the latest one, there you can see the rest of the details, which is particularly this multi-object processing and other things, which is the updated one. Earlier, those details were not there. Those processors were not there. Over the period of time with different version, SAP has been upgraded those. Okay. So these are all different business activity. Now similarly, when it has a business activity, likewise it will have the change request type. Okay, let's continue. Then I can see the change request type for suppliers, followed by the data model details, whether it is a single object or something, and then main entity type and the workflow template. So as I was talking about, we don't know what will be the template. So it is SAP who will provide this information, that what will be the workflow template which you can use. Okay, so now this one, SUP L1P1 for create, L2P1 for change, L5P1 for block unblock, L6P1 for mark for deletion, etc. So now let's see. So we can go to create change request type, SUPL1P1. Okay, so we can see create, change, block unblock, mark for deletion, etc. Okay, similarly for vendor, by the way, vendor and supplier both are same, just the name is different. So otherwise the relative entity and the process wise it's same. Okay, so in vendor case also you can see this is the vendor, create, change, mark for deletion, supplier, mark block unblock, mark for deletion, etc. So this is the detail. Okay, and now followed by this information, you can see single object, main entity type, and the workflow template. So it is all in place. Okay, and also if you see the rest of the details, here you can see. Now you can say this is the standard change request type, but I can't see the UI configuration because it will directly link to the standard UI configuration. So you need not to define any separate configuration. Okay. So similarly, the business activity also not defined, but it has to be defined. Okay. So it has to be defined like what you have for supplier. Otherwise, it is incomplete. So these are all things we need to just cross-check and make sure everything is in place. This is the one. Okay. Then followed by there are some more change requests, and it is talking about this same thing. You can see entity type, address number, BP header, BP relationship. Address number, BP header, BP relationship. Okay. Then followed. Then the business activity will be SUP1, and it will be standard. So standard and the business activity I just maintained SUP1. Okay. Same way you need to maintain for the others as well. So all the relative guidelines has been given here. Then this is the information. Similarly for the vendor. This is for the VLP1 for create vendor. This is the business activity. VLP2 for update vendor. VLP3 display, etc. Similarly for the change request type, the vendor. Now you can ask me that in real-time scenario, which one normally they use, whether the vendor or supplier? It depends. I have seen normally for the North America business, they use the supplier. Okay. Even for Europe business also, nowadays they use supplier. Okay. But there are some Europe business, they also use vendor as well. Okay. But ultimately both are same. It is dealing with a same kind of entity type, same kind of attribute, same relationship. So at the end of the day, it's the same. Okay. So this is the vendor details. So vendor also you can see here. This is the entity details. Same way, if I continue with material master, let's say material master, then we can have almost same sort of information. Page number, actually this is not in a proper sequence. So that's what the way I'm going in our discussion, this is the proper sequence. But the document which we have, I don't know whether intentionally or non-intentionally, the way they have defined, it is not in a proper sequence. Okay. So the page number is 24. So here the change request status, more or less same sort of information. Then you have the business activity for MAT1 for create, MAT2 for change, MAT3 for display, MAT6 for mark for deletion, MAT-A for process multiple materials, MAT-B for import material, MAT-M for multi-record processing. So this is the one, and then the followed by the change request. So that we can also see. So here, like if I directly say MAT01, so here this is the create material, change material, mark for deletion, process multiple material, import material, etc. Then again continue to that, you can see this is the entity type, the respective configuration ID, and the business activity. Okay. Same way, if you go to directly the business activity side, so directly the business activity side, mat 1. So create, process, display, mark for deletion, process multiple material, import material, multi-record processing, and followed by this information. Similarly, when you say mat01, mat01, and here followed by this information, where you have the workflow template, main entity type, etc. Okay. So then if I continue with the same thing for customer masters. So page number 19, same sort of information. And this is the customer master. For CUP1, 2, 3, so on, followed by this change request type, workflow template, etc. Okay. Similarly, you have for finance, which is also available in the finance document. So all these documents are already in place in Drive. So already you have seen earlier also we opened this document for particularly the first chapter when we discuss the authorization object, business functions, BC set configurations, etc. Okay. So this is the standard process. Now the question is, we have seen the custom process, the standard process. Now what exactly we are going to do in the real-time project? Whether any one of them we are going to use? Usually no. We are not going to use the standard. Even the possibilities are very less that you have completely the custom data model. Mainly the possibility will be you have to enhance the standard data model like BP, finance, etc. Then how I will project this process model. So basically what we need to do, even though we need not to touch the business activity, all we need to do, that is, let's say change request type. Let's say this example only, like I have a different region. Based on the different region, I want to create different change request type. Then, so mat01, I know this is for the standard change request type. All I will do, I will quickly copy this ymat01 underscore NA or ymat1 NA, and this is for, let's say, North America, and rest of the details will remain same. Copy all. So whatever this standard change request having, particularly the business activity, the entity types, everything has been copied. Similarly, okay, so this way we can create uh, Okay. So now this way we create the different change request type. By the way, all are for creation. Similarly, all we have to create for, let's say, change. Same way we have to go for mark for deletion. Likewise. And then we will take this and go to workflow. So definitely we are like the first question which comes in mind, okay, I'm creating change request type for different region, but ultimately what I'm going to do next? However, we will talk about later, but just I'm giving you a sense that we will then go to the rule-based workflow, and by using this change request type, we will continue to create North America specific workflow. Now remember, there can be differences of the workflow based on the different region, because every region may have a different processes. Your business flow can be different based on the different region. So that's what your workflow can be different, or it can be same as well. Okay. So this is what exactly we will do in the uh, real-time project. Okay. So if I talk about today, so what we talked about the custom process model, particularly with the airline processing what we have discussed. Secondly, we talked about enhance the standard process model, like just we have seen for material. Same way, let's say you can do the, so this is the standard one for supplier. You can also make it Y supplier 1. Okay. So this way you can continue. Fine. So this is the enhancement of standard, and also we talked about the standard process model as well. And then activate type linkage. Activate type linkage, we have to wait until we cover the UI model. Okay, because they are interlinked. Until we understand the UI model, we cannot come to this activate type linkage. Okay, so that's what intentionally I'm keeping it aside. So this is the process model. Comparatively, whatever the chapter we have, it is relatively small and easy to understand, but it has a different importance in the process, because ultimately everything is process, and you are going to ultimately using all those process in order to create, update, or process your master data. So the process start from here, and then it flows to workflow, then validation, then replication, etc. Okay. So any questions so far, whatever we discuss regarding the process model? Okay. So I think no one having any question. So anyone having any question from the previous discussion or anything? Because today I will not start the UI model. Our next chapter is UI model. So because the continuity matter. So that's what I will start from the next session only. So any question if you have, please.
Aditya, just one question, please. On the change request type, there was this entity type where you mapped, right? Like let's say for the material, it doesn't show all the entity types, right? Only like a handful of them was there.
I think you are talking about this, right?
This,
Yes,
correct.
yes,
So
yes.
like what will happen
So,
for the other ones?
okay. So basically, your question is quite valid. That is, I have a plenty number of entity types, but I can see only the few entity types here. What happens that by default, what you see, that is the leading entity types, what we have. So here for material, the leading entity type is material. Similarly, if you see for supplier, let's say, for suppliers, this is having the BP header, which is again a leading entity type, followed by the BP relations and address number. Okay. The reason is that when you are calling the leading entity type, automatically the rest of the entity types will follow. So you need not to add all the entity types here in order to follow your request. But what is going to happen that tomorrow if you are going to create one custom entity type, okay, and if you have categorically, if the custom entity type having the different UI configuration, then you need to add them. Okay, so that's the reason you have a space to add the custom entity types particularly. Otherwise, the standard entity types, what if the leading entity types are there, the rest of the entity types details will follow. Okay, so you need not to add separately all the entity types. Okay, but I repeat, if you have a custom entity type and if that custom entity type having the separate UI configuration ID, okay, then you need to assign them. Now for this, like how to create custom configuration ID. Normally what happens, there are two types. However, in UI section we will talk about in next session. So there are two types. One is you have the existing UI configuration. In the existing UI configuration, you are just enhancing. That is one part. Okay. Another part is you are completely creating your own UI configuration, a custom UI configuration. That is the second part. So if you have the second type of thing, then you have to add them. Okay. So that's the reason.
And Aditya, like
Okay.
between a change request type and a business activity, is it 1:1? Like one change request type can have only one business activity assigned.
Usually, but mm, it can be more than one, but we normally use 1:1. Good question, but we normally use 1:1 business activity. Okay, but I think because it having multiple space, so definitely you can make 1:n. But usually we use 1:1. Okay, just to make our work easy, nothing more than that. So if I have, like, let's say for an example, a different region. So region, if I have, so let's have a different change request type and then mapped with the business activity. Obviously, business activity can be 1:n. But my question was like one change request having multiple business activity. Normally in that case, we use 1:1. But one business activity can have, of course, n number of change requests. Okay. So like what you have seen for material, the one which we have created just now. So like this one. let's say material Asia specific. That is also, you can find the business activity mat 1. Here also for Europe, there also you can find mat 1. So in that case, of course, it can be 1:n. But the other way around, normally we use 1:1. But yes, there are possibilities that it can be 1:n as well, respect to change request type and the business activity. Okay. Clear?
Hi Aditya, I have a query.
Yeah.
Just a
Yes,
question
please.
saying that does a change request have number ranges that we need to assign or
Of
something
course.
like that?
Of course. Yes. So you need to
Okay,
go
okay.
to SNRO, and there you have to go to USMD_C request. USMD_C request. Go to the ranges interval, and this is the one. Okay, number range. Currently, which number we are, normally the number which is actual, you have uh, in the inner status, you have like 5 or 6 number ahead. Normally, it is having some buffer numbers. So this is the 1214, the actual number which is running, and you can see this is the range. So this is the MDG change request number range.
So is this change request type wise we can change the number range or something like that? No. Or just one
Definitely,
number range we have to decide.
definitely. No, 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 no. Definitely you can do that. Definitely you can do based on the different uh, type. You can change the number, but we don't do that because
Yeah. So what is the
that also
best practice?
create.
Means
Yeah,
we don't.
normally we use this way only. Like we have the change request number, and we just followed across the master data. But of course, you can do that. Or let's say even not with change request type, at least you can make it for, let's say, for material wise different change request number, supplier wise different change request number, that you can make. But usually ultimately
Not required as such.
you are basically using the change request just to update or create the master data.
Yeah.
Ultimately, for your customer, change request number is important till the process is complete. As soon as the
Yeah.
process complete, they will focus on the material number or your supplier number or customer number only. Okay, if there is any process problem in the process, okay, change request stuck or something happened, the data is not updated, then they will look into the change request, they will reach out to you. That is a different story altogether. But their relation with the change request ends as soon as it gets activated.
Yeah. And one more thing I had to ask, why is the business activity different for different components of this OG model?
Which model you say?
OG data model, finance.
Okay, so finance. Okay, as I mentioned, for finance, what happens that, let me open. Okay. So for finance, what happens that normally if you see material master, you have one leading entity type, that is, let's say, material. And under that entity type, you have the basic fields. And that basic fields is having correlation with the other fields. Like for an example, you have a Mara purchase, or you have something called MARC purchase or classification or characteristics, all are somehow related to your basic fields. For material master, I'm talking about. Same way, if you see for business partner, your business partner data somehow link with vendor, and your vendor data somehow company code and purchase, or whatever the data you have, they are following the basic information of vendor master. But for finance, that is not the case. Let's say for cost center, whatever the attribute we have the cost center, it may not having any relation with the other entity type. Okay. Means definitely there will be relation. I mean, what I'm trying to say, they are not dependent on other. Like for an example, classification and characteristics of the material, they are dependent on the customer basic information. But the cost center and profit center, they are not dependent on the other entities. Obviously, they are in a relation that we understand properly. So because of that reason, they have their own identity itself. They are the indigenous entities, basically. That's what we have a different biotype for that. Okay. So that's the main reason. Okay.
And even the cost center
group,
even the cost center group and cost center, these two things are also having different biotype. So is it pertaining to the masters which we create for cost center group and cost center?
I think so. I may not have a very detailed information because it's more on the functional side. So, but what you mentioned, yeah, probably that is the reason. So mainly, like I can only tell you from the overview point of view, because I'm a more techno-functional guy rather than functional details. So if you ask this question, particularly the finance functional person, he may can answer this in a better fashion.
Okay. I have just one more query regarding data model. I was just going through the OG data model, that document. So in that there was a section saying extension of chart of account, extension of OG data model, in short, means there it was given that chart of accounts extension could be done instead of single cost center, profit center, that way. So how is that means feasible if we want the entire chart of account?
Are you referring the same document which I was referring last week?
Yeah.